There is a new word that I want to bring to you. Soborness. I brought you a word called pustynia. Now, soborness is another Russian word that means unity. What I want to bring really to every Christian, to every human being, the desire, the flaming, tremendous desire to be one with the Trinity. For as our speaker just said,
Catherine Doherty was a prophet, still is a prophet through her writings, through films, through tapes we have. She was a very exciting human being.
but in order to form the community with the Trinity, my friends, you have to follow Jesus Christ. Otherwise,
I did not meet her personally. She passed away in '85, and I came in 1991, first visit, and then 1993 to join Madonna House. I greet you with a prayer that for you now and forever the day breaks. It was through your books, to some of the video we have, some of the cassettes. But the main thing was to understand somebody who was transformed by a relation with God.
I first heard about Madonna House by reading some of Catherine's books. I read Sobornost and The Gospel Without Compromise when I was in high school. And I was very struck by Catherine's words and the simplicity and the power of them and how tied in she was with the gospel life.
She was a refugee. She was an immigrant. She was a single mother. She raised a kid by herself. And through all that, she became a visionary almost.
At first you were drawn to her, and then you were drawn to what she was showing you. And so you would see this thing, this personality, then you would get caught up in the vision of God and love and recreating the earth and restoring all things to Christ and living the gospel without compromise. And then you would see what she was seeing.
She was born in Russia in 1896. And an important part of her background that she has both Orthodoxy and Catholicism in her family life. They were fairly wealthy, so when the revolution happened, she was with her family on the wrong side of the revolution. So they had to flee Russia. They escaped pretty much with the clothes on their back.
Her childhood and up until her leaving Russia formed her sense of herself, formed her sense of God. She was very loved by her family, and she was, I think, a remarkable child, very interested and full of life.
So her and her husband took a boat to Canada, a long journey, and she was pregnant at the time. They finally made their way to Toronto. Catherine started in Toronto to help the other Russian refugees who were coming, help them get work and food and housing. And that was kind of the origins of her apostolate to the poor.
Catherine always referred to people living on the street, the poorest of the poor. Some people used to call them hobos, maybe if they were on the road, maybe vagabonds. Some people call them tramps or bums. Catherine called them, and we have continued the tradition, call them Christophers, Christ bearers. Because, you know, he said, that's where you're going to find Christ. You'll find Christ in the poorest of the poor.
We consider we have kind of 3 foundation stages in Toronto and in Harlem and Combermere. So these are the 3, you might say, growth stages of the apostolate. And she was invited to go to New York. And she started friendship houses, mostly for interracial justice, and served meals for people on the streets. She had books and periodicals, and she wanted to do something for the children. The historians are saying that she was one of the first Catholic white women involved in interracial justice in the United States. And again, she was quite prominent. She did a lot of public speaking. The crisis in that community came when she was thinking of extending her apostolate beyond racial problems and situations. And a lot of the community thought that this was their life. They thought that they had joined an apostolate for interracial justice. But her vision was always greater. She always had a very broad vision of what her apostolate was, what the Lord was calling her to. Combermere is her final achievement. She didn't start out to found a community, but at a certain point she accepted that that was happening. So I think it's more of something she saw was God's will, and that now these people were here and they're not going away.
It was just an ever-expanding experience living at Madonna House in every which way. Food, the classes we had. She was very down to earth in many ways and very intellectual. She could sit down and talk with philosophers and university professors on their level, and she could talk with the simplest person about farming and raising kids and gardening and beekeeping.
The tragic events that she went through did not in any way diminish her love for Christ or make her pessimistic about the world. So I would say that's why I trust her, because she came through all these things with her faith still very much alive and flaming to her dying day.
It was a big deal when she died. When someone with that big a presence, a spiritual presence, never mind her dynamic personality, dies, certainly the community felt it.
My definition of a saint is somebody who puts down a path of light for their neighbor's feet. And she certainly put a great path down for my feet, a trail of light for me. That's what I think a saint is. So in my opinion, she's a saint.